hate to say it, but we kind of killed it on this one. All right, let's talk about what I have in front of me. This is an S550 cross member, subframe, whatever you want to call it. Look at the size of this thing. Everything is like M16 bolts, big threads, big shafts. No wonder these things are so stout on the track. But we're gonna take a closer look because this huge electric system of a steering rack is what sucks about the S550. And we need to go back a few years and get on the S197 Hydraulic Steering Rack from the earlier S197 models. This does not fit with this because this hole spacing here and here is quite a bit different. So in thinking of a simple solution, I was able to recognize that these bushings are a 1.5 inch OD. And if I was able to make the bushing a larger diameter and drill the holes offset, I can just pop out these bushings and slide these ones in. And if I rotate these in this position and on the bottom, we have two holes so that you can line everything up. If you just pop those ones out of the subframe and then put these ones into the subframe, we have successfully created a very simple swap kit that allows you to put an S197 steering rack in it. Plus, you'll be able to pull the bolts out of the bottom of the car and then remove the steering rack, where currently these are threaded and the rack can only be taken off from the top of this subframe, which doesn't work with everything in place. The other thing is we're gonna have this plate goes on top of the steering rack. This goes over top. We'll have a couple nuts welded to those. It's a high strength alloy steel. It's gonna give those bolts the inability to walk left to right because it'll be constrained with a secondary plate. All of this is gonna be easy to install, but the first thing to test is, can I bore these out easily? So what I did was I made the diameter of the new bushing 1 5/8". I'm using an 1 5/8 hole saw. The ID of the 1 5/8 hole saw is pretty much the OD of this bushing. So I'm gonna start cutting, and I should be able to self-center the hole saw all the way down on this bushing without needing the use of this arbor. So this drill bit won't be used at all to center the hole saw cut. I'm gonna go slow, I'm gonna use cutting fluid, but overall this shouldn't take that long. I should be able to pop through the top layer, pop through the bottom layer, clean it up a little bit, slide this in both ways, weld it up, and you're done. So let's see how that goes. We're gonna keep the cutting fluid on her. This is a no-name brand hole saw. This is a Lennox hole saw. Lennox hole saws have a thinner wall, and it's actually able to go right around the bushing, whereas the no-name brand has a thicker wall, and I'm cutting a little bit of the sleeve. So I'm testing out this one first. I don't know, these ones are expensive, and I don't want to put up that this is all you needed if you're unable to do it. So I'm gonna try the hard way first. Want to splash a little bit on there? Oh yeah. This is a rib cage delete kit. That's pretty smooth. Other than this thing punching you in the ribs, pretty smooth. Want to light me up on this side too there? Is that it? Yeah. We're gonna flip it over for the other side, and dude, this is going way smoother than I thought. This is the first try, and it was, you know, a little off, mind you, but it didn't really matter. Just as long as you go slow, you can do it. Bit less of a shoulder on this side. It's gonna be a real snug fit, which is perfect. Oh my goodness, that is sick. Not bad. One more, give her a good cleanup. You can see we took out the threads and the whole thing has a nice core. Don't need these anymore. Don't want to throw them behind me because I'd wreck my Turbo Smart Turbo. That would be bad. This is how I usually clean up things. I just wipe it off the table. Right on. All right, so these are gonna go in there. All right, we're just gonna line up these two holes, tack it in place. Let's see the rack. If my calculations are correct, should be able to drop that through, and bam. I mean, we're missing the top plate. It's gonna have nuts and stuff welded. The bolts are gonna come up from underneath. But essentially we have successfully made our hydraulic rack conversion. We put 2 sets of holes underneath for lining it up, and I just noticed I can use this as a straight edge and kind of butt it up right against the subframe. And I can see that the gap is exactly the same at the bottom of the hole. So I'm able to tack these in place knowing that the holes are the same left to right, because obviously the bushing can be rotated and that hole can be slightly off, which would in theory move the rack slightly forward or backwards, left to right. The one hole in the right side of the rack is actually slotted slightly, so it does allow for that amount of movement, so you want to make sure that this is nice and square. All right, so on this side you can see from my perspective, we've got 2 holes on each one, and then we've got a center point where you can see the turning from the lathe. If you can line all 3 points up, you can get a really good idea of how square it is. So we're gonna slap a tack on that. This side we tacked on the other side, so bam. And other than welding, there we have it. When the kit ships, obviously this piece is gonna be powder coated with the nuts already welded on it, so that is the only difference between what I just did and what you would be receiving. After we do this, we can start throwing this all back together with the hydraulic steering rack. Probably gonna turn this over to Cam because the welder that we have out in this area isn't quite hot enough. So Cam's gonna blast this up nice and hot, and Kyle's gonna throw it back in. Hey Beat Master, can you blast these on?
So we have the S197 rack in the S550 subframe. These mounts welded in. Kyle painted it up. And then we have our brace that is got the nuts welded on here, bolted through, so the rack is secure on here. And then Kyle whipped up the extension. You guys saw the clip of the stock one coming off. Kyle cut it in half. We made a little dowel and it went in. Cam welded it up, and then Kyle's gonna show us it on the car. He has it slid on there.
This is the steering shaft you're gonna have to modify. It comes off. That's the extension piece that we added in. It comes on and off fairly easily. So we're gonna put the subframe in and line up the steering shaft, the motor mounts, the radiator with the new steering rack. And it should all bolt up.
Oh man, this looks OEM. Hey, threaded right in there. It's like a dream. Yeah, good engagement. Steering rack's hooked back up with a nice TIG welded shaft. You see this, guys? I hate to say it, but we kind of killed it on this one. Love to hear it, hate to say it. Pretty much OEM, like it came with it.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Amazing. Got our new rack centering tool for the S197. Slide that on. So if you look from here, Jack, that's 120 mils of fury. You can just see how it was off-centered from the original bushings here. And then we have our little points to show the orientation of the bushings, which we talked about. Everything looks great clearance-wise to the pan. We're about a 16th off from our double shear plate that we put on. And then the only thing that we're going to be adding to this versus the production kit will be just a vertical plate that's going to join the powder coated threaded plate that you see here to the subframe. So those ears are going to stay connected to the subframe at the correct height, double shear. That's just going to prevent any amount of this happening with the bolts and with the rack. So this is going to be really solid. That is it for this episode of, I guess, modifying and perfecting this chassis to become the best option for drifting close second or a competitive race with the Corvette, I would say, as far as new cars being utilized and being really good right out of the box. This one might be taking the cake if you do this mod. We're going to install the final version of the Mega Kit with the billet top plates, with the perfected lowers. The other ones we're actually probably going to use or sell to a friend of ours, but it's going to be, everything's going to be cleaned up to what we said, and we have the billet version of the smooth adjusters now machined. So those are going to be installed. We're going to powder coat it our new color. This is super interesting stuff. Even if you don't have a Mustang, it still is really interesting. We're off to PRI. We'll see you on the next one.